Good evening and welcome back to the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. It's hot in the city tonight, but the thermostat has been turned down on Danny Schofield as the Terriers get their first win of the season to ease the pressure on the old Kilner favourite. Coming up this week, we look back on the Stoke game and in particular 3 players who we thought made a difference. And of course, there's some love for the head coach. We'll do our best to ignore the Preston Cup game and we'll look at the devilry that is players' social media. Stay tuned at the end as well for an impromptu version of the warm-up. So, welcome to episode 150. It promises to be an episode spectacular. I can't roll my R's, but we'll maybe work on that. Joining me, and I'm very, very lucky to have them, are the old faithful Richard Cozzy Kosmala, and all the way from the USA, it's Jerry Hinnan. So we did try and get a number of other lads to join us on the podcast. Brady, Bradshaw, even Farouk, Johnny, Pause, Phil. And a big ask went out to the warden of Whopper Watch, Neil Wayne, as well. But alas, we've been left with Ken Davey and Andrew Watson and the empty chair on screen. So that brings back, I'm sure, some memories for you, Cozzy, and a scowl, no doubt. Right, guess what? We can talk about a win. How good is that? So hello, everybody on that have joined us on YouTube. As always, let us know if you can hear us okay. I'm sure you can because I've had a quick listen to the bits coming through. And good evening to the 20 people that have joined us so far. So without further ado, this episode is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Use our code AHTTC10 for 10% off all your online orders at magicrockbrewing.com. Also get yourselves down there as well on a match day because it's pretty decent with the food trucks and all sorts of things going on. So big ups to Magic Rock who sponsor this podcast. We love them very much. Okay, so Huddersfield Town 3, Stoke City 1. Amazing. We get to talk about a win. So it was all pretty downbeat, wasn't it, in the previous couple of episodes? And I think we should start really by saying we hate podcasting, don't we, Cozzy, when we're losing games and we have to say negative and critical things about people that we like Danny Schofield and the players that we like. It's not fun, is it really? You kind of come away feeling a little bit down after you finish podcasting, don't you? Because you've had to say things you don't really want to say in public about some things. But, you know, such is the thing of doing podcasting. You've got to say it as you see it and you've got to be honest. And thankfully, we have a week this week whereby we can be honest and say, what a really good do that was. And for just a translation for you there, Jerry, that was it's a very good day to be a Huddersfield Town fan. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm going to say the last time we spoke to you, Jerry, was, or last time I did, it was when you were coming over for Wembley, weren't you? You got the aeroplane over from Greenbow, Alabama, or close by Greenbow, Alabama,
sure.
to give or take a few hundred miles. And, you came over and just tell us about your day at Wembley and what it was like for an American Huddersfield Town fan to come over and see what you saw.
Yeah, I think I was probably the happiest Town fan at the end of the day, maybe the only happy one. Obviously, the results sucked. The game sucked in a lot of ways. But, I got to hang out with a lot of new best friends, like in the Town fan zone, and, just to talk to somebody in person, and I've said this before, and say things like, man, Sorba Thomas has had such an incredible season. I hope we can hang on to him. Set piece or deliveries are, just so great. And have somebody respond where they actually understand that I'm speaking the same language that they are, as opposed to giving me this sort of blank look. It's just, even that little bit of interaction is fantastic. And then to be at Wembley, which is the sort of thing I wanted to do for, 20, 25 years, wasn't able to make it in the Wagner season. To be there for that, just to watch Town walk out onto that pitch, surrounded by other Town fans, to actually be there in the moment. Even despite the result, that's something I'm going to remember forever. I don't have any regrets about buying the plane ticket, about getting over there, about being in the stands for that game. It was a tremendous experience. And then I met Ian Holloway on the tube back to the place where I was staying. So it all worked out.
You also you saw a lot of, I believe the Ian Holloway story started off by the Nottingham Forest fans being quite typically Nottingham Forest fans, didn't it? With there
were, yes, they were. By the time I left, I hung out, applaud the team off. I decided I was going to soak up as much of Wembley as I possibly could. So by the time I left for the tube station, it was me and 5,000 Nottingham Forest fans. And so the Tube was me and a clutch of Nottingham Forest fans and Ian Holloway. And so, yes, this one Forest fan who had clearly had more than his fair share to drink was giving me a little bit of a hard time. And Ian Holloway basically told him to shut up in so many terms. Holloway was basically just sort of holding court on the Tube, like everybody there knew who he was. We're talking about the Blackpool days and, his punditry, what he thought of the match and that sort of thing. He was soaking it up exactly the way you would expect. Like, that was sort of the great thing about the moment, was that Ian Holloway was being exactly what you would expect Ian Holloway to be. It's just a little nice capper to the experience, I would say. I know a lot of Town fans still have a bit of a grudge against him for his expectations for Town the season they went up under Wagner. I think he had his peg for relegation that year. But he's a charismatic dude. He was fun to talk to. And his Blackpool side was great. Love those guys.
Yeah. So let's talk about Huddersfield Town 3, Stoke 1, which is fun to talk about as well. So finally, I think one thing that we were sort of not haranguing, but mentioned that we thought didn't work with what Danny Schofield was trying to do was the out of possession shape, the defensive shape that the team were playing in. It was very 4-4-2. I was not a fan of it. Stephen Chicken wasn't a fan of it either in the Examiner, and we wanted to see a return to a similar shape that we had last season. We had a lot of success with last season, and I think the hallmarks of a good coach is one that listens, not necessarily to me, but a coach that listens, is able to analyze, and he's flexible and adaptable, and has enough about him to sort of look at something and say, okay, the way I've gone here hasn't worked, I'm going to change it. And I think that says a lot about the character of Danny Schofield as well, that he's been able to do that quite early on, and he shifted it. And we're going to talk about 3, I think, specific players who I think contributed massively to Huddersfield Town's win yesterday. They're going to be Kane, Kessler, Hayden, Lee Nichols a little bit, Nakayama, and Jack Radoni. Those 3 or 4 players we mentioned there were huge on the day. But the defensive switch I thought was huge. Cosley, I know you don't like to talk about tactics massively, but you could see that players really looked much happier, really, didn't they? They kind of looked happier in what they were doing defensively, organisationally and structurally. Town looked a lot better, didn't they? And early on in the game, Huddersfield just seemed a little bit more at ease than what they were in previous games.
Yeah, we did, but I'd say it might be controversial. I thought we were very lucky to win the game. I was surprised, to be honest with you. I were ready to take my point once they equalised. I don't know how I like betting in play, but I think once Baker slotted his, kind of finish it with poor defending, I thought, for their goal. I thought there was only one winner there, Huddersfield Town. But no, it was a nice surprise. It's nice when you watch a game of football, isn't it, where you surprised at the ending, and even better when it's your team that's kind of doing the surprising as well, because I did think that we were critical, obviously, last week, Matt, of the subs and stuff like that as well, and I thought he got it bang on the money, yesterday, and Dwayne Holmes made a big impression. But yeah, I think the things that were noticeable for me yesterday, we look a lot more solid. We looked, like you said there, kind of people seems to know the rules better. It's kind of even though a lot of the players' names were different, people kind of reverted to type as well. But it was just the finish that really that galvanised me. Not just that we won, but it's just kind of we finished strong. And all I thought yesterday was, no matter whether we deserved it or not, we had to win. Honestly, even maybe to not lost, it sounds a bit bad, but even a battling point would have been an improvement on what we've seen the first 2 weeks. But to get the win, it was just absolute bonus territory, really, as well. And to get a third, we're being quite greedy at the end. But Michael O'Neill, I had an interview from him last night, and he said, I don't know how they've lost that game. And I agree, but they have, and I'm very grateful that they have.
I could tell him how they lost that game. It was quite straightforward for me. But I think we'll talk about some of the points. So the first player I want to talk about is Kane Kessler Hayden. Arrived at Huddersfield on Friday. We didn't really get much of a sniff about this until sort of the day before. He arrived fairly quickly. I believe trained briefly once on the Friday after he'd done his photo shoot and his medical, all the bits and pieces that go along with his onboarding process, shall we say. For me, he was... I know a lot of people are going, we need a striker. I've not as big on us needing a striker as what a lot of people are. It would be a nice to have, but it's not an immediate necessity, if you like, for me. A right wing back was something that I really wanted, because Sorba Thomas, for all his positives, isn't really a right wing back. He's more of an attacking player. Oliver Turton, bless him, is not really the best going forward on that side, especially as a one-on-one attacker. It's not his strength. Pip has left, obviously, and Brodie Spencer came in against Preston, the game that we do not speak of, and sort of struggled a little bit. So to bring in Kane Kessler-Hayden, I thought really enabled us to change shape, into this 3-4-3 that we played. And he offered a huge outlet. He's rapid, isn't he? He's really quick down that right-hand side, full of energy. And he was fun to watch, wasn't he? And he also fills the ears quota as well, left by Lewis O'Brien, which is always fun. Kane Kessler-Hayden then, Jerry.
Yeah.
We've got him on a season-long loan from Aston Villa. He impressed me. I thought he did really, to say the little amount of time he'd had with us, and Town usually like to sort of bring people in and have them, almost clockwork orange them, with the drops and making them watch tons of videos, in terms of, how they will play and what we will do. But, they threw him in and he played off the cuff and he did a good job.
I think there's two parts to his performance, one of which was that it was very good. Like, he got up and down the flank. I don't think he necessarily pulled up trees is the phrase, right? But, he did a lot of good things on that flank. I think he kept Stoke honest at the very least over there, which is something that I think Turton doesn't always necessarily provide. He just doesn't have that pace, out on the wing to sort of keep the opposing wingbacks further back in their half. So, just simply having him out there, I agree that Town didn't really have that option unless Brodie Spencer was ready. And, the evidence we have both from the performance against Preston and in the fact that Town saw a full preseason from Spencer and then went out and said, no, actually, we're going to bring in a loanee, once the season has started, that plays his exact position, basically. I think we have to conclude that Spencer, just isn't quite ready to take on that kind of responsibility. And so, the options in that right wing back slot, if you're going to play three at the back, Town don't have a good option for that spot. So that's one thing, is that he fills it, but then he also moves Turton into Turton's best position. I think Turton as, the right sort of center back in the back three, where he can, he's good enough at these sort of center back duties that he can play that. He's solid, but he can also, we saw him move forward throughout the game, which you don't always see from, backs in the three, where they get over the midfield line, where they contribute to the attack. And Turton, that's something he can do, like sort of play a good pass, play through the center, make the occasional sort of surprise run like that. Yuta can do the same thing. We're going to talk about him, I'm sure, but he can do a little bit of the same thing on the left side. And, as Stephen Chicken again wrote in his 5 conclusions today, I think that makes a big difference in terms of keeping opponents off balance, having those, center backs in a back three that can also come forward is a big part of being able to play this formation. And so being able to slot Turton into that role instead of trying to be this, right attacking wingback that he's not really perfectly suited for, I think is a big boost to Town. And, right now playing three at the back definitely seems so much more comfortable for this team. Kessler-Hayden not only being a good player and having put together a good performance in his own right, but making the formation fit, for Turton and the rest of the defense, I think was a huge bit too.
I think that's a really good point on Turton. Cozzy, you want to fire in and maybe would you like to see a loan maybe for Brodie Spencer just to keep him going, or would you keep him in?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Scuffy were daft on Tuesday to make so many changes. I mean, obviously we won yesterday, so you might say vindicated. I thought you're going to be, it's really weird because you hear stuff, don't you, from people that reckon to know stuff. But I were hearing we're hardly going to make any changes. Then all of a sudden, there were loads of changes, and the way we were playing, I just felt we needed to build confidence on Tuesday night and, kind of go with pretty much 8 or 9 players, even though many would have said after Birmingham, rip the thing up. So I think he was a victim of some poor management, to be honest with you. And it leaves him in no man's land now, because I think people have seen what I mean, I don't think it's one of those on Tuesday, Matt, right? He was so bad, then let's
No, I
let's
don't
fetch
think
in
so.
the right wing back. No, for me, it kind of felt maybe this was always the plan, but yeah, he did okay, didn't he? I mean, didn't pull up any cheese, but it just always makes you laugh. How many you guys must have played five-a-side at some times in your life? It's like, have you ever filled in for your mates' teams where like, do you fancy a game of five-a-side? Yeah, but you don't know any of the players, and you go there thinking, oh my god, like you're on this team, you've got a bib on, you've not, and it's like, shit, I don't even know if he's quick, is he's what footy this guy is, what this other guy does, and it's horrible, isn't it? You must have played five-a-side where I know you probably went in goals, Matt, but it's awful, and I'm not denying that last week. All right, we signed him on Thursday or was it Friday? I can't remember, but surely I've had one or two sessions. But he's such a tough ask and a great vote of confidence for the guy. But and again, I'm going to break one of my rules here, which I know I was talking about social media later on, but I was fascinated to see what the Villa fans were putting once he come. And my words, I think they've got big expectations of this boy, haven't they? So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, he's going to be a Colwill, or of that like ilk and that as well, or Ben Chilwell or someone like that. But yeah, I think we've got a good in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've said, so the game, I agree with something that you said earlier in that this game could have gone either way, for sure. And there's a number of moments throughout the game which have really gone in our favour. And the first one we'll talk about is the penalty. So first of all, I'll throw it out as a question. Me and you have disagreed on this on WhatsApp, and that's fine. You think it's a penalty. I don't. Jerry can have the deciding vote on there, the Ruffles thing. For me, Lauren kind of throws himself in and Ruffles plays the ball. But one thing me and you were saying, Cozzy, is I don't think I saw an angle you did you, where you thought it maybe was. So I probably haven't had a chance to see that. But we'll throw that out as a poll in a minute on there to see what people thought. I didn't think it was a pen. Cozzy did. It didn't matter because the big man came up with the goods again, Jerry.
Yeah, every now and again, I feel like I read a piece on the internet that says, should we consider reforming the rules around penalty kicks? Because, in a game where you get, 1, 2, 3 scores in an entire match, like, should we have this system in place where we have one incident and a team gets like 80% chance to score just from some random act? And that was one of these that made me think maybe those articles are onto something in some ways, because if that incident takes place anywhere else on the field, I don't think we're saying, oh, that was never a foul, right? Like, I think there was contact there. I think the Stoke player got there slightly ahead of Ruffles, but also he didn't do anything wrong. Like, he just kind of stuck his foot out there. He was trying to get the ball. I don't think he knew where the player was, and he just happened to make contact. And it's one of those plays where, by the letter of the law, okay, I guess it's a penalty, but like Stoke never deserved to have a goal out of that. Like, it's just sort of
it's a jeopardy, isn't it?
It is. It's just sort of a flaw in the way that the sport is played. And, sometimes that's going to happen. Occasionally Town are going to get those kinds of breaks as well. But it's one of those where it just leaves you like, it's just a total fluke. And for Stoke to have gotten a goal out of that would have just been completely unfair. So, is it a penalty? Yeah, I just feel like maybe we're in a better universe where the ref has like sort of some sort of jurisdiction to say, actually, we're not going to give you a penalty for that. We're going to make this some sort of close and direct free kick or something. I don't know if there's really a good solution to this issue. So a penalty, yes. Should it be in a more just universe? No. Does that work as a enough of a fence straddle for you, Matt? There,
I think the thing that works me a little bit. I mean, it's early days, but we saw against Birmingham poor reactions from our defence. I thought we were really poor with the penalty. Come straight out. Again, going to five-side terms, you're always thinking, just watch for the rebound. What's going to happen? We were miles slow, and Jacob Brown got there. Very lucky, obviously, that the woodwork. Nichols were beaten there again. And again, I thought with Stoke's goal, poor. It was an awful goal, kind of dancing. There were 3 or 4 people could have, like, closed or, we lost possession. It does worry me a little bit. I mean, you don't expect people to be on top of the game. What is it, August the 14th and stuff like that as well. But very slow reaction, ponderous kind of thing. We need to wise up in
A lot of goals like that against Preston, weren't they, Cos?
Yeah, I thought we got away with it definitely from the penalty yesterday. But my heart went out to Utah because it's like obviously home debut in the kind of league. You want him to concede a penalty when Stoke.
It was Ruffles though, wasn't it?
You what's today?
It was Ruffles, wasn't it? The penalty.
Oh, sorry, Ruffles. Yeah, it's like proper. He's been like lacking in confidence as well. People have been calling him out on that as well. So I just think, you want ideal at all, but when you've got the Championship Keeper of the Year, there were certain,
good save as well.
Really, that obviously the adverts were putting him off behind the goal and everything as well. But to go one down there would have been whoosh.
It's a different game, isn't it? I think we might have lost a bit. A part of me thinks we'd have probably lost the game if we'd have gone down. And the other turning point really is the Dwight Gale offside goal as well. We might as well throw that in now because the game sort of spun a little bit there. Because I think it was 1-1 at the time, or Stoke were more in the ascendancy, weren't they? Michael O'Neill doesn't think it's offside. I've seen a still, and he kind of looks offside, but it's very difficult to tell. So it's impossible really to tell without your VAR glasses on.
Dwight Gale could play as well as he gobbed off. It reminds me of Craig Bellamy, to be honest with you, a cheap Craig Bellamy, cheap version, because bloody hell, he's got plenty to say, that guy, hasn't he? My word! Not just to referees, but his own teammates and pain.
If he doesn't get the pass right, he's not happy, is he? He's one of those, isn't he? But so the game's definitely swung on a couple of key moments, and it could have gone both ways. And there's a lot of people online are kind of going, "Oh, it was an amazing performance, fantastic," and I'm kind of like, it could have easily gone the other way. It's brilliant to get the win. It is fantastic to get the win. But was it a fantastic and brilliant performance?
However we did it, we had to win.
Maybe.
We had to win.
Yeah, so the next piece, the next part of my agenda is that set piece FC return, and the goal. Sorba Thomas, a different kind of corner from Sorba. It's more of a Danny Drinkwater-esque kind of laces through the ball, wasn't it? But the movement from Yuta Nakayama was fantastic. Maybe the goalkeeper should have perhaps done a little bit better. Maybe if that's our goalkeeper, you kind of hands in your head, your head in your hands. But the movement from Nakayama was superb, wasn't it? And he's got a really good spring on him, and we saw that from his video of his time in Holland in the Eredivisie as well, that he does get up really well. He's 5'10"-ish, isn't he? But he's got a good spring on him. And we'll move on to Nakayama as well. I thought he was my man of the match. I thought it was great. As Jerry mentioned earlier and what Stephen Chicken said, he offers that overlapping centre-back option more comfortably, I'd say, than Turton, because he's more of a natural attacking thing. Although Oliver, if you look at the heat map, and Ollie Turton did really get down that right-hand side really well as well. It gives us a different dynamic as well. Him playing there, and he can move to left-back if you want to bring Will Boyle on and, throw 4 at the back and go more solid. And I thought Yuta Nakayama was great. And one of my favourite moments was where Jacob Brown sort of fouled him, kicked him off just before, in the first half, and it went through him and over by sort of the byline. And then the next time Jacob Brown got the ball, Nakayama went, scything through him from behind and took the ball and let him know that, he's in with someone who doesn't mess around. And I think there's a lot of potential for a cult hero here with Yuta Nakayama. Just some stats from him is he won 4 aerial duels, which again shows that, we may have a small back three, or what you would class as a small back three there. You've seen the stick that Man United are getting for signing Lisandro Martinez at the minute. I think that's his name, the 5'9" centre-back. But we've got 5'9" Ollie Turton. We've got Tom Lees, who's maybe not quite 6 foot, and Nakayama 5'10". But they all get up, well, maybe not so much Turton, but the other two get up really well. And, 4 aerial duels, 85% passing accuracy, 6 clearances. And, he really impressed me, did Nakayama. And I thought he deserved the Man of the Match award, and I thought it was really nice if you've seen the interview with him afterwards, where he kind of rejects the Man of the Match award, if you like, and just sort of says, "No, I wouldn't have got this if it wasn't for my teammates." And there's a real sort of favourite, I think, in the ether there with Yuta Nakayama, and I could see him really kicking on with town fans and Japanese flags in the south stand and all sorts. I think by the end of the season, I think a lot of people will be in love with the player by then, Jerry.
Oh, absolutely. He's class on the ball. Like, that was really sort of, it's really unfortunate, I think, that ultimately it was his error that led to Stoke's goal. I agree with Cozy that was kind of a poor one to give away for the equalizer. That's really sort of the only blot on what I think otherwise was a really great performance. You mentioned the 85% passing accuracy. That probably would have been another ticks higher. He tried those sort of ambitious long balls over the top to Sorba down the left that, were like a foot away from really coming off and really putting Town in like a great position. And that's one of those where I think eventually those two guys are going to be on the same wavelength, and those will come off. And I think Town are going to generate chances out of that. And that's not something you necessarily expect, again, from a center back. I think, Naby Sarr on his day could play that kind of ball. He just wasn't quite as good at it as I think he thought he was at it. So you had the occasional fantastic, diagonal to a streaking winger, and then occasionally you had the pass for, the giveaway into the opponent's midfield. If Nakayama can pull that off a little bit more consistently, I think that's going to be a real weapon, especially with Sorba, down that left side. I think that's something that's exciting. They came so close to pulling it off. Again, other than the air, just so really composed on the ball, strong in the tackle. I ended up having Rudoni as my man of the match, but I totally understand the sentiment for Nakayama. And, his the goal was well taken, like sort of angling back towards, just putting that header directly on target with the power behind it that he had is not the easiest thing in the world when you've made that little run around behind the defender to then sort of turn and deliver it with that much power behind it. It's just a really solid header. A brief shout out too for Sorba here. That's not his usual delivery to sort of pop it up to the back post a little bit like that. To put it on the dime for Yuta there, he has not lost his set piece delivery skills over the summer by any stretch, which is really nice to see. And, that's one of the things where, we're in this sort of turbulent period and, what's going to happen for Town going forward, less now than we would have been going into this game. But knowing that, we can still sort of rely on, there's going to be set piece goals from Sorba Thomas, and especially with targets like Yuta and the other guys, those goals are going to come. And so seeing that was, a delight. Not just it's Yuta, it puts Town ahead 1-0, their first lead of the season, et cetera, et cetera. But just really sort of knowing that they've got that in their back pocket is nice to see as well.
Yeah, but if you're obviously Michael O'Neill, you're thinking, the hell's picking him up? But not bothered about Stoke, bothered about Huddersfield. I don't normally do stuff, Matt. You'll think I'm cracking up in the seat, but I'm looking at a heat map of him today, Nakayama, and exactly what you said there, mate. He's kind of, covering left back, kind of moving to centre back. I'm very comfortable moving it forward in that as well. Spent a lot of time kind of near the halfway line, bringing it forward. And I think, he does look, a lot of things what Jerry said there, like calm on the ball. Yeah, okay, maybe you can question marks to go, but he's only going to improve with that as well. And I always think it's nice when you can get a goal in front of like the South Stand catch at Lowell and that as well. So I put that picture out today to Twitter. It's kind of got a bit of love, but it's brilliant photo like of him celebrating with everyone as a guy. They're going absolutely nuts, like he's
that's good.
It's brilliant. That I just thought that is football. So yeah, perfect. Let's talk at the inquest on what they were doing there at the back, but. Yes, signs. Obviously, it's the first time we've kind of seen him, really start and look good. He's definitely booked his spot for Norwich on Tuesday. That's for sure.
Yeah. So just after half time, it looked like almost the role reversal. And Town usually start in the first half quite poorly under Danny Schofield, and then having a slightly better second half in the previous games. And we'd had a fairly decent first half. I thought, we got the fortune, if you like, with a penalty save, and then. First 20 minutes, Stoke battered us a little bit, didn't they, Cozzy? I thought Stoke were by far the better team for 20 minutes, deserved the goal. Yes, Yuta Nakayama made the sort of first phase error, didn't he? Jack Redoni as well, he perhaps needed to be a little bit stronger. And then we'll talk about Jack Redoni quite shortly because he, like Jerry says, he had a really good game as well. The equaliser was coming, good strike from Baker. No qualms with that. But it didn't go the way that we thought, did it? I'll be honest here, I couldn't make the game on Saturday. It was my little boy's preschool graduation, and they organise these things to not around football, do they? And so I got back and I was able to watch from like the 5th minute onwards at home for the rest of the game. And me and Cozzy, we have these discussions, don't we? During lockdown, we sort of not analysed, but we discussed every weapon on iFollow, the commentator and the co-commentator, and we're pretty adamant Reading have pretty much the two of the worst ones, but the biggest weapon is Mike Pedgick from Stoke. He is absolutely horrific, and he said he said Stoke were the far superior side in the first half, which no, not really. And then in the second half, he said it was like watching a Premier League team versus a bottom end League One side or something. And I was just like, this. He was terrible. There's partisan and there's just a bell end, you know. I mean, and that's a bit of a dick for the American in you.
I think that's but yesterday when you've lost three games on the bounce, and all right, you can say it wasn't like a first team maybe on Tuesday night. You've got to fear the worst, haven't you, when that goal goes in yesterday? But the fact that and after that, Matt, I didn't think they
disallowed goal with Gale, didn't they?
Gale goal, but after that, I didn't. The tide turned, and honestly, it's just so good.
This is where
how it kind of happened.
Yeah, this is where you've got to really credit Danny Schofield as well, isn't it? Because as you said earlier, this is where he got his substitutions absolutely bang on, didn't he? So huge credit to Danny Schofield.
Tino, wasn't it?
Yeah, apparently he had a bit of an illness or he sounded a bit like sunstroke, he said in the post-match. So Tino was struggling with something throughout the game, probably not his best game. But Dwayne, with Dwayne Holmes is like almost the new Naby Sarr, isn't he? So with Naby Sarr, we always used to joke, you'll either get, the Champions League version, or you'll get the Vanner of the Liverpool. Even Liverpool is too good for sometimes what he'd put. The Birstall St Patrick's version of who I used to play for on a Sunday. We used to call him Naby Moore or Gordon Tuxar, which is. And with Dwayne, you now seem to get Dwayne Iniesta, which came on, didn't you? He was superb, or a bit of a Dwayne in the neck, if you like. But Dwayne Holmes came on and really sort of helped change that game. It was a brilliant substitute, wasn't it? He. Where we have to give the credit, and we'll talk about the other player now, which is Jack Redoni, is what Huddersfield Town do slightly differently now, which they didn't do under Carlos, was under Carlos they would sort of retreat to halfway and let the other team play in their own half and then engage, when they came into our half, if you like. Whereas now we're starting to pick our moments to press a little bit higher, which is a little bit more Wagner-esque, if you like, for those who don't always watch Town. So it's, and the person who started that press and caused the error was Jack Redoni, who was playing in central midfield, a position where he can play, and a position which he really came into in the second half with some of his, his passing, his vision of passing was excellent. There were a couple of moments where he played the ball wide in the first half. He had two men on his back, and Jonathan Hogg gets a lot of stick for only being able to sort of pass in front of him. Hoggy was really good alongside him. That was a bit more of the Hoggy of old. He was winning the second balls. He was, being the general, if you like, and giving the ball nice and easy cross field and that sort of metronomic midfield that you want from him. So, big credit to Jonathan Hogg for coming back as well from a lot of criticism that I've been getting online. Not me. I'll add in there. So I wouldn't dare say anything about Hoggy online.
Matt, just
come looking for me.
Sorry, mate. Winding it back to Dwayne Holmes, I think one of the big things that happened, if you remember, he went steaming into the keeper. I don't know, he went 50-50. I think their guy, but it was 75-25, the keeper getting it. But he went in, but he just I'm not here to mess about. I'm here to give that energy. I'm here to, the crowd can get behind stuff like that as well. And I just thought,
yes, it lifts, doesn't it? Yeah. What was funny about watching that, Mike Pedgick was in the first half. I think it was Baker went through the back of Jonathan Hogg. And the referee was talking to him and he was going, oh, you can't tackle anymore. The game's gone. You can't tackle. And it's a tackle from behind. And he's like, if he books him for this, it's a disgrace, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, well, let's see how he is for the rest of the game. And then when Dwayne Holmes did that, he was absolutely off his chair demanding a red card for the foul on the keeper. Such a phallus, that guy. Unbelievable. But enough about Mike Pedgick. But, the credit to Dwayne as well. Dwayne, the pressing from Redoni. Dwayne's seen the error coming and intercepted it. And, and he's gone through and laid, and he's done what he's done there. And, Huddersfield Town have put the game on, or turned the game on its head. That's what I'm looking for, with two moments there. And the second moment as well, Jack Redoni again, a superb pass, isn't it, through to Dwayne, and he looks a million miles offside, doesn't he, when you watch it, and it looks ridiculously like Pavel Abbott style offside, doesn't it, against Lincoln from 2004. And then when you actually wind it back and you kind of frame by frame, it's actually not as cut and dried as it looks. He actually, there's a possibility that Dwayne was level when Redoni played it, and it's a really superb early ball. And the Stoke defender steps out at the time, and Dwayne steps forward, so that's why it looks so offside, in normal time. But it's, fair play to the linesman for giving us the benefit of the doubt and being kind to us. And the referee is not someone we particularly like, because he's the guy that last year gave that ridiculous penalty against Sorba Thomas at West Brom. So, he's already on the list, so to speak, that referee. But go on, you talk about Dwayne Iniesta, cause.
Yeah, I love what he brought. And you know what, this sounds a bit bad, really, because he was massively part in obviously what we did last season and to them good unbeaten runs and stuff that we were having. But I always think he's an impact player to me, Matt. And I think that exactly yesterday, what he can bring there and that as well. I just think if we had a stronger first 11, and that's probably where he would be, and that as well. And because I think you can use him in a lot of different ways. And he's not a player that if I were, kind of playing. I mean,
With army knife, I call him.
Yeah, I just think after now, you don't really want someone like Dwayne Holmes on, because he's going to be niggling, he's going to be in pockets of space you don't want him to be, and two beautiful, assists as well, and so unselfish. The one to Rhodes, which were, fantastic. He could have easily gone himself if he wanted a team player. He could have shot and maybe not scored or what have you. But yeah, Redoni, he's easily been our best player. I mean, there's been a low bar on it. Let's be honest, the first few games, but. It's been fantastic. Ooh, gives you a lot of. You can see why we've got him. You can see why there's quite a lot of teams were wanting him and that as well. He's passing very calm as well, isn't he? He's got a great eyesight and an eye for a pass. Comes forward. It'd be interesting to see, if he can kind of pop some shots off and kind of get in the box. But yeah, like what he's bringing and as well.
It's a good combo, isn't it? Though him and Hogg as well.
Yeah, him and Hogg is a great combination. Yeah, absolutely. And I think. Obviously, when you've come into the team and, you bench for a couple of games and start in others, but it's difficult, isn't it? Because he's not coming into a team that's like 1-3 in a row. He's got and you wanting people to stand tall. You wanting people to kind of come forward with the ball and show what it's about. He's only a young boy come from AFC Wimbledon. It's not as if we've got a Premier League loan, been working around big players. So some really good signs. Trying to rein it in, obviously, because we haven't had many positives. But yeah, fantastic. He looks like he could be some player in.
Yeah, I think the only gripe I had with Redoni was he kind of got knocked off the ball quite easily on a couple of occasions. But, he's playing championship football for the first time and things like that. It's part of the learning curve, isn't it? I think there's some really, really, really good things to come from Jack Redoni. And, credit to Town for picking him out, for picking Kane Kessler-Hayden out. And, they look good signings so far. It's just a case of sort of putting them all together, making that cake, isn't it? Putting them all, mixing them all in and bringing something out. And I think the system that Danny Schofield has picked, I'm going to go back to that and be really boring, but I think that system that he picked gives us a really good base and a really solid base to build on. And, that back three, and just by being solid really allows you to sort of bed in players like Redoni, Tino, Sorba on a slightly different position. And, I full credit to me goes for Danny Schofield for realising that and, and making those substitutions in the manner that he did in the time, because, he'd been making a lot of late substitutions before, and now he's spotted things, quite early and brought Dwayne on. And Jordan Rhodes as well. Jordan Rhodes came on, pretty much scored with his first touch as well, didn't he? So, really good to see, good decision makings, and long may we see things like this and a smiley Danny Schofield face in the press conference afterwards.
I'm with you, Matt. I did see this clamber for it. I had a couple of disagreements, but kind of fired into a couple on Twitter this week. But we need a striker. No, we don't. Danny Ward gets a chance and he'll score. Rhodes gets a chance, he'll score. We don't need any striker. We're not creating enough as it is. So to me, it's in an ideal world, if we had a big pot of money and yeah, all right, it'd be nice to have an extra striker. But what would he ever play him? So to me, it's just not what we need. Part of me still wonders if we need another centre half, Matt. I don't know what you think, but obviously Utah's done a job kind of in there, but more maybe a CM. But obviously, a win changes. Does it change your kind of thinking as well? Because it was an interesting combo, Hogg, but obviously you can't expect him to play 46 games and stuff. So
and John Russell can come again, can't he?
Yeah. I mean, it would a no-brainer really, wasn't it? Taking Russell out of the firing line and that as well. Disappointing with some of the kind of comments about him and that as well. Last week we were obviously saying he wanted up to standard, but people are like proper getting on his back, and it's just like that second season's always an hard one in football, Matt. We see. I don't want to mention his name again, but we've seen people that have a great first season, the second season, it's really difficult to keep it going and that as well. So we've just got to get behind these boys and that as well. They're good players there.
Yeah, he'll come again. He'll come again, John Russell. There's no need to panic on him. Yeah, he'll come again. There's a few things he needs to work out. The lack of pace is a worry, but there's a couple of things he definitely needs to work out. But he can definitely come again.
Yeah, Russell has been, I think, more affected by the loss of O'Brien than anybody else. Like, we know that Russell's, he's not a ball winner. Like, he's not a guy who's going to fly around the midfield, get stuck in the tackles. That's just not his game. He's this, sort of almost Yorkshire Pirlo kind of guy who's going to sit back, have the ball at his feet.
That's sadly already been claimed as that, Jerry. Steady on.
Exaggeration. But, O'Brien kind of covered they were a great partnership in midfield, O'Brien and Russell, because, O'Brien could do the tackling, could do the dribbling, could kind of play that all action role, that isn't really Russell's strong suit. And Russell could make some of these sorts of incisive, diagonal type passes that, wasn't necessarily O'Brien's strong suit. So they really complemented each other. And without O'Brien, it's not enough just to have Hogg besides Russell to sort of cover for, Russell's lack of ball winning. You have to have a little bit more teeth in the midfield. Just Hogg and Russell, you pointed this out, I think, last week, Matt, just as a 2 in like this 4-4-2.
Too slow.
There's not enough bite there, with Hogg at this stage of his career. It's just, I think he had a great game on Saturday. But him and Russell together, I just don't think we're working. And I think that's not really Russell's fault. They just need to find that other person. I think he's a guy who fits into that kind of 3-man midfield that we saw down the stretch last year with Hogg and O'Brien and then Russell. The question is, can they find somebody to be that third person? And I think in some ways the story of the game on Saturday, aside from just, Schofield sort of keeping the train on the rails, is what I think maybe they have in Rudoni, because we saw some of those O'Brien-esque glimpses. Like, he's not the dribbler O'Brien is, he's not yet the guy in the tackle that O'Brien is. So, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but, he's still just 21. This was his, second or third championship game. And those glimmers were kind of there. Like, he just looks to me so much better as a central midfielder than he has out on the wing. I think he can maybe be that kind of guy. And if he continues to sort of develop as the season goes along, I think you could absolutely see Russell come back in and maybe try out that, 3-man midfield again, like we saw sort of down the stretch last season, that let Russell be the best version of Russell, again, because I think Rudoni, put that kind of performance together on Saturday, especially on the rewatch. The first time I watched it, I agreed. I thought Yuta was man of the match. On rewatch, just Rudoni was so active in the middle of the field. Even if he didn't always win the ball, he was always being a pest. He was playing the right passes. He was just doing, again, he's not Lewis O'Brien yet, but he was doing enough Lewis O'Brien things that it just wasn't the sort of walkover in the midfield that we saw against Burnley, that we saw against Preston. It was a very different situation in the middle of the field. And that was because of Rudoni. And if we keep getting that going forward, I think it's going to change the direction of Town's season.
Yeah, I think what Rudoni really did well is he broke the lines really well, and he looked forward. Every time he got the ball, he was looking forward, and he was really impressive. And for me, our top three players on the day were Nakayama, Rudoni, and Lee Nichols. Lee Nichols again, what a day for Lee Nichols! Penalty save, a couple of saves, nice and easy, and of course a yellow card for time wasting. It's like he's back to. It's back to what we love to see, isn't it, with Lee Nichols? But we'll move on slightly. Cozzy, I'll throw this to you. Neil Warnock back at Huddersfield, good to see. Sparked a rumour online. I saw that he was coming back as manager, which is always kind of amusing, isn't it? But there's also a bit of sadness as well, isn't it? Because we look back to that 1994 promotion-winning team, 94-95 team, and there's a lot of happy memories come with that. We've spoken to some of them, haven't we? We spoke to Ian Dunn. We've not spoke to Boothie yet, or Ronnie Jepson. Ronnie Jepson would be a good one to get on the podcast. We spoke to Pat Scully and, a couple of the other lads. And they're all sort of like household names with Huddersfield fans, that team, and Neil Warnock built that team. And a man that helped him build that team was Mick Jones, wasn't it? And he is such kind of like a calm character when Neil Warnock's doing all his rants and stuff. Mick Jones is the one who then brought the players back down, wasn't it? And he was the sort of calming personality in the team. And sadly, Mick Jones passed away a couple of days ago, which is sad. But Mick Jones was a huge part of Huddersfield Town for those couple of years, and our thoughts go out to his family. But Cozzy was a big character for Huddersfield, wasn't he? And he'll be a miss.
Yeah, it's sad. Obviously, Dave Wilson, bless him as well. The physio from that time, we're losing a lot of people from that amazing time. But yeah, like you said, Matt, he always was calm. When Warnock was losing his spleen. But I think he's just like assistant managers and coaches and stuff. It's not just like they're worth the weight in gold. It made me laugh yesterday just seeing Chico losing his stuff and they're as powerful now as sometimes the managers, isn't there, as well? You've got a lot of people there that are unsung heroes in any team, and we've mentioned before, like kind of Brookie the Kitman, but yeah, Mick Jones huge in that season, and really sad when Neil Warnock tweeted the news kind of out yesterday, and it was nice to see a familiar face yesterday at the ground, and obviously he put a nice video out. We know that he's got his show coming up end of September in Huddersfield, but yeah, it's just really sad, and I just feel that he'll always be regarded as a Neil Warnock's team, but Mick Jones, massive part of it, and that as well. Obviously Kevin Blackwell, man, it's sad news, and thoughts go out to his family and friends and that as well, because people still going about Brentford away. It's funny when Warnock put the Warnock's video out, didn't they? But yeah, I still love reading that love from the 94, 95 promotion season. But yeah, sad news, and can't have been that old, Matt. He was still relatively young and that as well. So yeah, thoughts go to his family and friends.
Absolutely. So I think at this point what we will do is we will go across to our watching cohorts, if you like, on YouTube, and we'll read a couple of comments out, shall we, from the about the game on Saturday. So guys, I put a poll out. Was it a penalty? Yes or no? And it's in, and it's pretty split really. Yes, 46%, no, 53%. I don't know why it always leaves 1% on YouTube, but it does. So yeah, it's almost 50-50 there. So, give or take either way. I'm sure if you did put the same on a Stoke City YouTube channel, it'd be a lot higher for yes, I would imagine. So thanks for those who voted there. So Adam Kershaw says it was scrappy, could have gone either way, to be honest. The middle of the pitch looked much better with Radoni, good movement, and did some great passes. Also helped having you two at the back who can pass forwards. Bez5678 says chalk and cheese, looked organised, committed, and the new guys are fitting in well. Leo says lots of positives, a gutsy performance from Town with Danny Schofield making bold changes to the team. We need a left back. Thought Ruffles struggled again and could have cleared the ball for their dodgy penalty. I was going to say, Cozzy, when you mentioned where would the next player be, positionally, I'm sort of still, when we talk about the striker and people sort of saying we haven't got a striker, we don't got a striker. I'm still sort of looking central midfield and left back at the minute with a raised eyebrow. I don't think it needs major surgery or anything right now, but if you had to push me and say, right, where would you next see somebody, I would maybe wait a couple of weeks. In an ideal world, maybe wait a couple of weeks and just see how Radoni fits in that central midfield role. It's one game, isn't it, he's had there? And then the other one is also seeing how Josh Ruffles develops at left wing back, because he's had a couple of games last season, not really got going, a couple of games this year, and he's not yet to get going. But, he's not really played last year, so it's going to take him a while, isn't it, to push on and get going.
Toffee is such an high bar, and I watched it again. Don't want to induce any pain in here, but he had a brilliant
Let's
game.
not go down the route of those whoppers that you're about to mention in red.
Thought he had a great game, massive for the winning goal and that as well. But it just shows, doesn't it, that what the boots are to fill and that as well. Everyone's going to kind of be judged on that. We've got a tradition of really good left backs at Huddersfield Town, and yeah, trouble is you mentioned earlier on about podcasting. The problem is with this, so it's not a problem, but we're on every week, so we have to judge every match, every single game. We could look back in a month. We could win at Norwich on Tuesday. Coventry, if they can be asked to get a field ready, we might win next week, and then we could be like 6 and Schofield's turn it around. But we have to judge it game by game, don't we? And at the moment, we've got to be honest. Josh Ruffles has looked pretty average, and you can't. certainly the recruitment team ain't going to be surely leaving that position like that if he keeps playing that is. But the game's again thick and fast. Hopefully, we're going to be playing next Saturday as well as obviously coming up Tuesday.
The other option as well is Ben Jackson, who had quite a good pre-season, didn't he? So maybe there's opportunity. But I think Josh Ruffles has to probably be given the opportunity to play himself into it, if you like, because he's, like I say, he's going to be a bit rusty. This formation change won't have helped him. So we'll see how Ruffles gets on. And in an ideal world, you would wait till maybe towards the end of the window, but you have to move when the players are available, don't you? So we'll have to see what happens there. But in an ideal world, I'd like Ruffles to push on and do well. So we'll see what happens there. So Stephen Batley says, phenomenal effort by the team in that heat. Looked more comfortable from the start in that shape. Rudy was class, energetic and intelligent. My man of the match. Bez5678 says, Radoni, fantastic prospect. KKH allows us to play a better formation. Yutta's a firm fan's favourite already. Adam Cottrell says, thought it was a no-nonsense type performance where they just concentrated on doing the basics well. We really needed this win to give the lads a boost and the fans. Adam Kershaw says, also, Tino did literally nothing on that right wing. Could do with another winger and maybe a pacey left back. Tino's just kind of... He's done all right so far, hasn't he? But I think there was a fitness issue.
Again, I just want to mention there's snap judgments after one match, but Thomas on the left, not for me. It's only one game.
Not as good as the right, is it? But I can see the theory going there, because I think Danny Ward's a player who makes those really good near post runs, isn't he? And Thomas checking back onto his right foot and curling it sort of inwards to the near post could potentially reap some rewards for someone like Danny Ward, but we'll see. We'll see.
Feels like
We'll see how it goes.
He had a couple of good deliveries from out there, and then he also had, where he's trying to play the ball in with the outside of his right foot, and it goes straight out of play. That's 6 and 1, half a dozen in the other.
He'd ruined a really fantastic piece of skill to get past 2 players there, didn't he? And then he did that silly sort of outside of the right button. It was just like, that could have been so good if you'd have got it. Yeah.
Instead of winding the fan base up, you should concentrate on football.
Well, we'll come on to that in a minute. But let's finish. So Adam Cottrell says, wasn't it the same ref that had that ridiculous penalty against West Brom? Yes, it was. Bez says, you can't put your foot that high. Soft, but probably the correct decision on the penalty. Adam Cottrell says it was offside. I don't know if he means Dwight Gale or Dwayne. Dominic Campbell says, I love Nakayama, already a hero. Adam Cottrell says, man of the match, JP. Leo says Yutta, Tom Cowan-esque in the air. Yeah, there is this little bit of shades there, isn't there, with Tom Cowan, who was perhaps not as big as your regular defenders, but he leapt amazingly well. And you think back to that Wimbledon goal in the FA Cup, Cosy, where he seems to get about 10 feet in the air, didn't he, to glance it in.
That game, bloody hell, what a game that was.
I know.
Look at that. Go, wasn't it?
Ugh, yeah. But we talked about Darren Bullock. The Darren Bullock episode that we did talks about that, doesn't he? And he was quite critical of himself, wasn't he, for conceding a corner? Although I still think that was a good challenge by him. But I'll bow to him. Adam Kershaw says doesn't pass forwards with regards to Romani Edmonds-Green, wondering why Romani Edmonds-Green wasn't then. From what I know, Romani Edmonds-Green just wasn't picked. They went with a different direction, went with Turton at right centre-back over Romani, and then Will Boyle offers, if you want someone on to defend a lead, Will Boyle's your man, isn't he? Because, he's good in the air, and, if you win in a game, you're not wanting to pass out from the back, so I guess Will Boyle is the... We'll speak less about Will Boyle, how he fell over his own feet when he came onto the pitch.
Twitter feed if you want to know that.
Oh, yeah, poor old Will. But bless him. So and then Joseph McGregor says, please speak no ill of my countryman Dwayne. Joe, another American town fan for you there,
Hi.
Joe. For Joe from Texas, top man.
Dwayne Holmes and I were born in the same hospital, by the way. I forget if I mentioned that on the
I think you did.
podcast, my first appearance. But yes, Dwayne and I were both born at Fort Benning Armory Hospital in Columbus, Georgia.
There we go. Dwayne Octavius Holmes, perhaps the best middle name in the entirety of football. Matt Wilson, good old Matt Wilson says, yes, boys, buzzing for the 3 points. Hopefully that steadies them down and they can build from here up the town. Adam Cottrell says, Radoni looks like money well spent, looks a talent. Do you know, if the rumours are believed that it was around about £800,000, cause it could potentially be an absolute belter, that one, because, you're adding another knot on there if he has a good season, aren't you?
Starting, innit?
Yeah. It is. Let's calm our skin. Let's calm the skin a bit, yeah. And Adam Cottrell rightly points out that Jordan Rhodes joined the 200 goal club yesterday. So that was good for Jordan as well. And Jordan's looked good this week, hasn't he? He's got 2 goals in 2 games, and he looks he's looking good as the old fox, isn't he, Jerry?
I don't. What's this about? What's all
I don't
that
know.
about? He loves that.
I don't know.
I don't understand the bias striker talk at all. Like Warden Rhodes have played 4 collective games and they've scored 4 goals, despite the fact that Town have created approximately 4 chances.
Yeah.
No, I just don't understand any striker that you would play above either Ward or Rhodes is going to cost more money than Town need to spend on a striker. Like, just by definition, to me, buying a striker doesn't make any sense. Like, that money needs to go towards, as you point out, left back, left wing back, maybe a right wing back, maybe another winger, something along those lines. Like,
in terms of the first 11, it's not necessary. Yeah, I think there are strikers that are nice to have. Go on, Cos.
I think the pleasing thing with set piece goal was that listening to the To Be a Terrier podcast this week, where he mentioned, it quite shocked me that I think what was it? The stats, the XG stats, something like Huddersfield Town, like take away the set pieces, something like the 4th worst goal scoring team in the division. So
open play, yeah.
For people less tactically now than me, it's kind of like if we don't improve a set pieces, we're in deep doo-doo unless we do something totally different that we hadn't done last season. So it was kind of pleasing to see that goal go in. But I must admit, I was like, wow, that was another thing. I kind of turned it off as podcast to go, oh my God, But
I think the other way to spin that as well, Cos, is that Huddersfield Town were good at set pieces, and once we got in front, we tended to sort of cling on to what we got. So I suppose the other way to look at it is if we don't score a set piece, we keep pushing and score differently. But it's strange, isn't it? Like I said, goals, like we've said with the Stoke game, goals change games all the time, don't they? And incidents, change games. So who knows? We'll probably find out this year, won't we? But let's go on. So Bez 5676 says Russell has hardly played for a year, needs 6 or 7 games before he's judged. I think I agree with Bez on that. I think Ruffles needs a good run, doesn't he, before we start tearing strips off him, which we don't really want to do anyway. Mark Carrison says Ruffles may be a slow burner like Turton. I think that's a really good point as well. Turton took 20 games or so, did he, last year before? Because he looked...
Yeah, definitely.
Let's be honest, he looked naff, didn't he, Ollie Turton, for 20. Well, he only played 26, but for the first few months, he looked like every bit a League One right back, didn't he? And then all of a sudden he's the Ginger Cafu, isn't he? And he's a big cult hero among the Town fans. So yeah, let's give Josh Ruffles some time. I think that's very right from Bez and Mark that we perhaps give him the benefit of the doubt for a little while. So let's get behind Josh Ruffles, including me. Ponty Terra says, "You to me are everything." I think we need another line from Ponty Terrier. But that does sound like a winner for the South Stand. I quite like that. You to me are everything. I'll think about that because I think that's actually got a good potential there. That's pretty good. Right, so thanks to everybody from online. And we're going to move on to Huddersfield Town 1, Preston North End 4. And we're going to quickly move off of that as well because none of us really want to delay on this. But I think there's a really good breakdown of this game. If you listen to the Chicken Trick, Stephen and Dave from their podcast last week about, it followed on the back of Huddersfield 1, Preston 4, and there's a little tactical breakdown and failure of the shape as well, the out of possession shape we've mentioned, which we don't need to go over again. So if you're looking for anything on Huddersfield Town 1, Preston 4, I would recommend listening to Stephen and Dave on that one because they nail the issues around the shape and how Town looked really narrow and how they were bypassed really easily by crossfield balls and then the ball back across into the box really easily. But Town have remedied a lot of that issue with what they did on Saturday. So really, if we go into the tactical breakdown of Huddersfield 1, Preston 4, hopefully it's not going to be relevant because Huddersfield Town have acted upon that and switched. All we'll say is that we're always shit at the League Cup, so, nothing's changed there from Huddersfield Town. So, we never do anything in the League Cup, do we, Cos? So, let's move on nicely. Unless anybody's got anything to say on that. I need a hammer, don't I, like a judge?
No, it was just interesting. Again, the 12 championship teams went out. There was some ridiculous figure, wasn't there? There was some bad defeats.
12 out of 14 went out to a lower league team or something like that?
Yeah.
Is it something like that? Yeah.
But again, somebody was putting the old article together. I think we're in Athletic, the old crisis, the League Cup. It's on its, Jack Jones. It is amazing it's still around for me, to be honest with you, mate. But yeah, I didn't lose. I'm all gutted that we just were in disarray, really, rather than went out of it, to be honest with you, and that as well. But
the manner was bad, wasn't it? The manner of the performance was pretty bad. But
the second goal where, the Preston guy comes across the middle of the box and there's 3 Town defenders there, and then none of them pick him up. He just has basically a tap in, and then nobody really reacts. That, I couldn't watch it live, went back and, watched the replay and the highlights. And, that was really sort of the troubling thing, was that highlights, obviously in scare quotes here, that there didn't seem to be a reaction to that goal where, it's just an extraordinarily simple goal to give up. And that there weren't some of the recriminations that we've seen, no finger pointing. There just didn't really seem to be a reaction at all. And, that was kind of the troubling thing, was that, you're off of these 2 defeats in the league, pretty poor performances in the first half of both. And you're hoping to see a reaction in the first half. And instead you get this just sort of anti-reaction. And it's like, well, is this because the players have sort of, downloaded from the coaching staff that this game just does not really matter? And certainly when you make as many changes, to the starting 11, certainly everybody knows that the game does not matter as much as like a league game. So is it from that sort of perspective, or is it from the perspective that like Schofield, is, lost the locker room and the players were already checked out and that sort of thing? So that was worrying. And so that, again, that sort of makes Saturday's performance all the more important, and that makes it sort of all the better to see Town come out, and especially in that first half, just like at the end of, going into halftime on Saturday, it's just, I felt like taking this just huge breath of like, yes, like, things are not as bad as they have looked. The team is capable of coming out and putting together a professional performance. No, they weren't perfect. But just, people kept bringing up, the Jan Seward era and the start of that season. And, I don't think Schofield ever sort of earned that comparison, but, the performance against Burnley to start this season was not that dissimilar from the performance against Derby to start that Seward, season. Like those performances, had a lot in common. And so to see them come out on Saturday and get that reassurance that like, no, that's not how things are.
Yeah.
First 45 minutes, even if the game had finished in a draw, even if it had finished, in a competitive loss, I think I would still have that sort of buzz, for lack of a better word, after the first 45 minutes where it's like, okay, they can do this. We know these players are capable of putting together a professional performance. And hey, they did it. That was something I think I was going to take with me, regardless of how the game actually, the result went there in the second half.
Yeah, I think you're quite right there, because I think we all mentioned on the podcast there were shades of Jan Seward, but I think with what Danny Schofield did in terms of changing shape and changing system, Jan was quite married to that 4-3-3, and everybody had to play this 4-3-3. I think the way the reasons the comparisons came about was that what was being asked was too complicated maybe for the players, and it wasn't working, and Jan stuck to that constantly, and it's really what saw the ending, whereas Danny's changed that already. So I think we can now have the comparison crossroads, like you see on Fast and Furious with Paul Walker and Vin Diesel going off in different directions now, and Jan Seward has gone that way to be consigned to history, and Danny Schofield hopefully now goes on to have a long and successful coaching career with Huddersfield Town, we hope. So yeah, we can put that one to bed, I think, quite early, which is always good to do. Also putting something to bed before we mention Cozzy, as he's scrolling along OnlyFans on his phone.
I'm dying in him.
Too hot.
About 180 degrees.
You look like it. I've got the double-edged for me as well. Jerry's sat there in Alabama going, "You guys are amateurs," but there's like it was.
Well, we have air conditioning, so.
Well, we don't. I've got the door open next to me, but I live next to the canal, so then it's quite insecty, if you like. So I've got the light on and the door open, so I'm going to be flooded with flies and all sorts of stuff in a minute. But never mind. But so what we're going to talk about now is social media faux pas, if you like. So Danny Grant and Sorba Thomas have both incurred. One's incurred the wrath, the other one not so much, and it feels a bit double standardy in some ways to me. But I genuinely think if you had an issue with Sorba Thomas's Instagram post, which to me was nothing really more than somebody just trying to put something inspirational on social media and failing, that if you took that in a really, if you took great offence to that, then I find that really peculiar that you would do that. All he's put there is really, we get something really nothing like, we go again, you're either with us or against us. And it doesn't really sort of say, like, a lot of people are sort of acting as if it said, right, that's it, Huddersfield Town fans are absolutely shit, you lot can do one, I'm going to go out and do it and play for myself. And that seems to be how they took that. And it's just really bizarre how to make that leap from something which I thought was quite innocent and maybe not particularly well thought out, but to sort of that level of offence, I just found really bizarre. And I just thought, there's people, and I think it's just really when you're not doing particularly well, I think people sort of jump on things a lot more, whereas if we'd have won against Preston and he'd have put that, everyone would have been like, yeah, come on, let's get behind Sorba. It's just, I think it's just the room temperature when he posted that was probably higher than Cos's front room there. So it's really sparked a reaction which probably shouldn't have happened, but it did. But he responded really on the pitch in the right way, didn't he? He put, he worked really hard against Stoke and not everything.
Losing game football. Yeah, because did you see Tino's post when again someone was steaming into him?
He's good. He was good work with Tino.
I can't know exactly what it was, but it was good. It was like, well, we need support and what have you and that as well. But I think it's just like, oh, Matt, you have a look at some of Man United's players post probably after tomorrow night, last night. Sorry, but we're winning games. People, blowing smoke up people's backsides, and if we're losing it, everyone's just slagging people off. It was the same when we were on that bad run, weren't we, and stuff, and people steaming into him. I know he didn't help himself, but yeah, I must admit that with the carry on with the Sorba Thomas, I hadn't seen it, but my timeline was flooded with, who do you think he is, this, that, and the other. So I was expecting something proper juicy. So
I was. And then I saw it and I was like, I felt let down when I saw it. I was like, oh, is that
it? Yeah, it's. I still can't understand that. The Danny Grant thing is he's got to be frustrated.
He's frustrated. Yeah.
Again, you know what? If he does go out on loan, which is what they're reckoning and stuff, I don't know. That might have always been the plan. You just don't know that. But obviously, people are going to put two and two together. He did that, and then he's. He ain't gone out on loan yet, but he could be out on loan and stuff. But it's they must be so frustrating for the guy. I mean, God, it's not exactly execution stuff what he did and that as well. But
they had the whole mask over him, didn't they? And there was the guy from the axe from. It was almost like Sean Bean in Game of Thrones first series, wasn't it? He was up on the stage and everything, and you've got the guy with the big axe and everything ready to take his head off. It was absolutely mad, wasn't it? But and Danny Grant is just a frustrated young player. Yeah. A frustrated young player, Cos.
Yeah, social media's been so good for me. I'll never forget interacting with Effel in the promotion season. He steamed onto my Instagram like, that video you put on, can you send me? And all this lot, and it was brilliant. It was the start of a great kind of time on it, because definitely we're putting them other videos on and stuff for the air freshener and this and dressing gown and on and on and on. But the one common denominator here is that we were winning games. If Effel were doing that when we were bad in that second season, they'd been destroyed. And it's the same the other day, with Sorba and stuff. It just makes me sad that. I mean, you kind of maybe feel we're in a glass house here, but we got to
definitely with the heat in your room.
This is what we do, but it's so frustrating though that when this were a man who nearly took us into the Premier League. And
think of all the dancing.
Why are people so angry about football and stuff? And I just don't get it. It's so frustrating and just count to 10. Don't be posting that. And then it's like, no wonder, people some sort of cup the ear at the fans and this, that, and the other.
You didn't. Yeah,
you didn't. It's so unnecessary,
It was like last year when we weren't doing well, and there was that thing where Dwayne Holmes forked. He was forking the town fans, and I know 3 people that were there in front of the incident and said no, he didn't. And it's people that weren't at the incident, stirring, and just stop shit stirring, and it just does my head in stuff like that. Yeah, and Danny Grant's just a frustrated young player. He's liked something he probably shouldn't have, and then unliked, realised he's made an error, unliked it. Again, no need for a hangman's noose or anything, is it? Just
whatever the club were posting out, the other week, people just steaming in straight away, at £10 in, well, no one's going to come and why do people just have to feel the need have to put all that rubbish there? Just don't comment on it or take a break from the site or mute Huddersfield Town for a bit. I must admit,
That's what you did.
I did for a while because I was getting on my nerves a lot of the stuff, but I don't steam it in like this is garbage and this is rubbish and I'm another sponsor and all this. It's like, man, it's just like you get a thick skin because like I do the social media that I work and you get a thick skin with like the abuse and stuff. You just keyboard warriors, you get on with it, but it's just some people are more sensitive than others and stuff. And
it's quite rife across football, though, isn't it? It's not a Huddersfield thing, is it? You look at it's 10 times worse if you look on Man United's feed and all that sort of stuff. And it's only like the same 4 or 5 accounts, isn't it, every time that are doing it? So it's only a non-event,
really, Matt. But it
small
was
sample.
just disappointing to see people steam into a guy who was giving us a lot of.
You think back to last year, don't you, with the dancing in the south stand, him and Paz both going like this and all that.
Even having a go, wasn't he? So what an odd. But again, I think it's just 3 games frustrating and people just looking at any excuse to kick it down. We've got some strange fans that want to kick themselves while they're down, and I don't get it.
Oh well, we'll move on. Jerry, you've not really said much. I don't really think there's much to say, is there? Really, other than player post something on social media. People overreact. That's about it.
It's just, I worry. What bothers me about social media abuse is that I just wish I could, sometimes get the athletes in a room and just say, whether it's for town or, the U.S. football teams I follow or, whatever sport, just sit them down and say, please remember that this is a tiny portion of the fan base. I just worry when Sorba posts that. I feel like a little bit like he is feeling, just rattled by the reception that he's gotten from town fans, like maybe on the field a little bit. And then he turns on his phone and he gets this reception from, the fans that are on social media. And I worry that he is sort of expanding that to the entire fan base. Now, I don't think he is. I'm just saying this is sort of what I worry about when athletes and fans interact on social media, is that the athletes sort of get the idea that the fan base is more against them than they are, that this is really a very small, unfortunately, very vocal minority, and so that's the frustrating angle for me. I have really no problem with Sorba posting what he posted. I don't really have a problem with Grant. In a perfect world, does he like a tweet that he liked where everybody can see him liking it? No. But of course he's frustrated. There's no way on earth to begrudge him having, not received the playing time I'm sure that he expected to receive when he signed for Huddersfield Town. I think by all accounts, he's worked very hard to get back healthy again after his injuries, and he hasn't sort of received the reward for that effort yet. Of course he's frustrated. And right in the heat of after the game, so he pushes one button on his phone and everybody goes, stop. It's just one very frustrated young player who has reason to be frustrated, making one slip up with his thumb. That's just not reason enough to be angry. And, Sorba, the good times, this is, again, why Saturday's game, I think, felt more important than it probably was. It's game 3 out of 46 in this league season. Forest went up last season after not winning they won one of their first 11 or 12 or something like that. It's a long season.
Wonder who they beat to get them on their way as well.
I know. I'm sorry. My bad. But anyways,
started and ended with us.
Losing your first 3 games is not really the end of the season, but just the vibes, for lack of a better word, were bad. And, that sort of to me was what I was taking away from Sorba's Instagram post. On its own, in a vacuum, no, it's totally innocuous. But just on top of some of the boos that we've heard in the stadium, the sort of lifeless Preston performance, I think Town really needed a win. And, again, like you said, Matt, credit to Schofield for sort of recognizing that and saying, I'm not going to just kind of keep on with the same thing that I've tried. It hasn't worked. We really need a result here, and we're going to do something different. And credit to Town for going out and getting it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not many comments coming in really from online about it. I just think everybody's just we've won a game, so it's gone.
Right. As soon as you win, it's not
I
a
don't
thing
think
at all.
don't think it
Like all
matters.
you need is a win. You win, and like it's the storm cloud just totally dissipates.
Exactly.
And,
No,
we've got
really
rainbows and prancing unicorns and happy bunny rabbits until Tuesday.
Until we lose again, and then
we'll see what happens.
Sober's the devil. Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention is there's a huge clamour for Danny Grant to play, and it's something I call Joe Lolly syndrome, whereby the ability of a player seems to magnify and seems to almost triple when he's not playing and Huddersfield Town out winning. And we saw this with Joey Goodjohnson. I remember when Simon Grayson came in, Cosy probably maybe remember this more than you, Jerry, but when Joey Goodjohnson played for Huddersfield, he was so lazy, disinterested. He was talented, but very lazy, very disinterested. Waste of space, really. We used to call him Gimli from Lord of the Rings because he was just this little dwarf walking around kicking people. And then when Simon Grayson came in, we stopped. We didn't win as many games initially, and there was this huge clamour, silly clamour. Why isn't Joey Goodjohnson playing? Joey Goodjohnson needs to play. We have to play Joey. It was a really silly sort of clamour for him, and he played. And surprise, surprise, he was shit, and he was back out of the team quite quickly again. And there was this huge thing with Joe Lolly. Joe Lolly seemed to become a world beater when he wasn't playing, and everybody always used to sort of clamour for Joe Lolly. And why isn't Joe Lolly playing? And then he'd play, and then no one would say anything. He didn't really do a lot, and then he'd be back out of the team, and then a few months later, why isn't Joe Lolly playing? And then he'd play, back out of the team, didn't do anything, back out of the team. And it just feels like Danny Grant is the latest in a succession of players that Huddersfield Town fans are putting on this pedestal up here, whereby they're putting a little bit of pressure on the player, because Danny Grant's a young player who's had a couple of flash moments in the B team in pre-season, looks quite sharp, physically looks quite good. I'd like to see him, but I don't think it's quite the slight that the free Danny Grant movement have started. I feel like he just feels a little bit over the top to me. I'd like to see Danny Grant. I'd like to see him come off the bench, but I'm not mortally offended that he's not playing on the wing at the minute like a lot of people seem to be. But that maybe that's just me. But but I would like to see Danny Grant at some point. But I'm not overly upset like a lot of people are that we're not seeing him. But
we can't watch them train. We don't see, 2-hour YouTube streams of their practices. Like we get the, 5-minute highlight clips from the B team games. So, I also would like to see Danny Grant in an actual competitive Huddersfield Town match. I think that would be good. I think, I would certainly like to see him above, a Rolando Aarons or whoever in the pecking order, but right wing is an extremely difficult place to find playing time for Huddersfield Town right now. We've got, Holmes can play there, Thomas can play there, Andren can play there. It's just not, an easy thing to get competitive game time on this squad right now. And, I think eventually it's going to come, and I hope he seizes that opportunity with both hands. And I don't blame him for being frustrated right now. But, on my sort of list of potential criticisms of Schofield and his staff so far, Danny Grant hasn't played yet is not very high up that list.
Are you agreeing, Cos? Not that asked.
No, not that asked, mate, to be honest with you. And that as well. It's, you just got to, like Jerry says, we don't see him train. And it's, it'd be nice if you could, I can understand this frustration and but it's very difficult to comment when you want kind of there on Tuesday night and stuff. And you think, God, if he can't get a game there, when can he not? But, he's never really played at pro level, so let's get him alone and see what he can do. Let's see how good he is.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. So let's just catch up with what's going on YouTube right now. So there's conversations galore going on at the minute. So some good people in the comments. So so Mark Harrison says, talk of the Coventry game being switched to a home game due to their pitch issues. And so the Commonwealth Games, which the USA don't take part in, Jerry, so you probably didn't get much coverage of that over there, but it's essentially like the Olympics just for places Britain shithoused in the past, if you like.
I knew that the Commonwealth Games were happening because they were in Birmingham, and
That's
just
right.
recently we had a large athletic competition in Birmingham, which is
Alabama.
the city about an hour up the road from me here in Alabama, and I just think it's hilarious that there were these two somewhat similar large Olympic style gatherings in both Birmingham and Birmingham in the same summer.
Yeah, I'm sure that people in Birmingham don't kind of sound like this, do they, Jerry? You don't really sort of go around talking like this. I'd love to see the accent over there.
So I went to the powerlifting at the World Games, right? So one of the events that they have at the World Games, which is sort of like the lower rung sports that aren't in the Olympics are what make up the World Games. There's like powerlifting and korfball and like acrobatic gymnastics, not like the artistic gymnastics. It's the like
Frisbee,
crazy
stuff like
stuff, basically. And so we went to the powerlifting, and they had an announcer from the UK who did insist on pronouncing it Birmingham every time. He's like, "Oh, it's so great to be here in Birmingham." And my children took particular offense to that. I was trying to explain that, like, you can't get over an entire lifetime of pronouncing it one way and start saying ham at the end just because you happen to be in the city for one event.
It's not like West Ham, is it?
It's not. It's exact. No, that's pretty much how it's pronounced. It's Birmingham. Yeah. So I tried to explain to my kids that, like, we have to have some sympathy for how it's pronounced, for this guy who otherwise was tremendous. He was so excited about the powerlifting. If that guy's listening, you did a great job, guy.
Right. So yeah, the Coventry Games. So the Commonwealth Games, I think there was something like 36 games of rugby union sevens on the pitch in a week or something. So it's absolutely killed it. So they've had a couple of games suspended. Huddersfield are on the horizon, but there's talk of flipping it to make it a Huddersfield home game. I've never, ever seen the Football League authorities do that. There's quite a lot of admin to do to switch a game like that. There's, especially with regards to, season ticket holders, etc. I think there's just too much mess there, which means that probably wouldn't happen. But from what I see, anyway, it looks like Coventry are quite keen on trying to get that game to go ahead. So I presume they'll leave that as late as possible. And if they do that, then there's no way it's going to get flipped, and therefore it'll either end up being played at Coventry or postponed. So I would imagine those are the two options at the moment. Let's have a look. Chris Green's there. So good lad, Chris Green. He says, I would rather be away for the Coventry game. I like my away games and travelling on coaches. Goes everywhere, Chris. He's off to Norwich on Tuesday night. He's certainly gets around. He does more travelling than anyone I know. And he also says it should be postponed and played in a free midweek slot at Coventry when their pitch is sorted, which I agree with. With regards to the Sorba and Danny Grant issues, Chris says, I didn't understand the context of Sorba's social media posts. Everyone looked at it differently, which I think is right. But if he meant it as a dig at the town fans, then he was wrong to do it. Bez says, total, just young and inexperienced kids reacting without thinking. No one ever done that. And Bez again says, I thought with regards to Danny Grant, he could have been given 45 mins on Tuesday. Who knows if he's any good? Well, hopefully Danny Schofield does. That's, otherwise there'd be some issues there. But yeah, so I think coming on to the last bits now, a couple of things just to touch on, really. We've got on the website, we might do a live Twitter Spaces after the Norwich game. There's a Norwich game's been played on Tuesday. Not a lot of town fans can go, so maybe we might do something after on Twitter. We've not done a Twitter Spaces thing before. Guaranteed to go wrong and be an absolute shit show. It always is, when we try and do something for the first time. But we might try and do that out there, depending on numbers, and see if we can get people involved. And we might do it like a phone-in as well. So, you guys out there can have your bits and bats and say, and we'll see how that goes. Another good piece of news for us is we've welcomed Brad Barbs, as he's known, or Brad Barber elsewhere, to the Takes That Chance family. Brad's by far the best Huddersfield Town vlogger out there at the minute. He's got quite a good thing going on YouTube. Cozzy's a big fan of Brad's as well, aren't you, after you met him at the ground for an interview with Sky, wasn't it? So Brad's going to do some bits, and he's going to appear on our website as well, which is really good. So hopefully that increases traffic for Brad and awareness. And also hopefully this week I'll finally maybe get round to releasing the article that I promised weeks ago on our season prediction game, whereby I'm going to push out everybody's season predictions, but it's just a case of collating them all at the minute into a big spreadsheet, the boring stuff, before pushing that out so everybody can see what everybody else has voted for. And that pretty much brings me to the end, but stay around because we have an impromptu episode of the warm-up filmed by a very sauced up Brady Frost along with Tom Bradshaw. Brady is top class after he's had a few beers. You know, everything goes out the window. His professional demeanour, he even maybe swears, drops the odd swear word in here and there, which is funny to hear coming from his mouth. And we're going to play that in just a minute, so you guys can hang on in the YouTube and you can be the first to listen to Brady's warm up for the Norwich game. But anything from you guys, Jerry, Cos? You look like Cos. Always looks like he's got something to say. Anything to round up, buddy?
I think Tuesday is going to be really interesting. Norwich have started terribly. They've got 1 point from their first 3 matches, so they're a little bit in the situation that Town were in going into Saturday. If Town come away with a result on Tuesday, or even just a really good performance, you know, that's, I think, going to be an extremely positive sign. That's it.
Yeah, agree with Jerry. I think we're just going to have to stick in there and we'll come under the cosh. That's just how we can handle it. I saw them play Wigan the other week and Wigan were really strong and stood up to them. And yeah, then hopefully the Boo Boys will get at them and yeah, we can do something good. But yeah, it'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? If we could get just 1 point and stuff as well.
I know. Can you imagine if we beat Norwich and then all of a sudden everybody's like, what was all the kerfuffle at the start of the season?
So, tell you what, though, this is putting my head on the line, but it can't be as bad as last time.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah. Right, guys, thank you very much. Thanks for listening online. Stay around for Brady's for Bradle Juice and the boys. Thanks to Ken Davey and Andrew Watson in the empty chair. Thanks Jerry. Thanks Cozzy. And let's roll in Bradle Juice.
Hello and welcome to a very special warm-up preview of the Norwich game. We're recording live from Magic Rock straight after the Stoke game. 3-1 up the Town. Come on, first win of the season.
Up the Town, Magic Rock.
That is the voice of Tom Bradshaw. We're also joined by James Whitaker. James, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Excellent win for the Terriers today. Much, not exactly expected, but much needed.
We're also joined by Joe, a voice that we're very familiar with. Joe, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, man. Yes, I'm very good. Very good first win of the season then, chaps. How are we feeling then? Good win. Very needed win. Tom, I'm going to come to you first. How are we feeling about that?
I'm feeling great. Town played really well, I thought, actually. I think there was maybe 15-20 minutes where Stoke were the better team, but overall I do think Town deserved the 3 points today. Dwayne Holmes was miles offside for that third goal though. Absolute love it. The refs owe us though.
Yep. EFL, if you hear that, it doesn't matter, we won, so you can hear that as much as you want. James, who impressed you? I've got to say, the right back, Kessler Hayden, I thought he was class today.
Yeah, very impressed. I mean, we looked at the team sheet before and they seem to be playing 3-4 fullbacks on, which we're trying to work out, but I loved it. Nakamara absolutely class, like great goal. I think that just got us underway, and then Radoni just dropping into that midfield role was just absolutely brilliant as well. But yeah, absolutely great performance, much needed, and kept the Stoke fans quiet at the end, which we all like. So yeah,
lovely stuff. Joe, who stood out for you then?
Obviously Nakayama was standout, but I'd probably hand it to Radoni, just because before I was a bit worried that we'd be left wanting in midfield, only Hoggy and him in there, and yeah, I think he stood up defensively, did Radoni. Yeah, I think it has to go to him for me.
No, I completely agree. Radoni really impressed me. We talked about in the preview the Hog Russell. It just wasn't working, and I hate to say it, and this is no disrespect on Johnny Russell, but I think we look better without him in the team today. It looked a bit more fluid. Tom, thoughts?
Yeah. I think that's what we were missing, weren't we? I think Hogg and Russell, too similar, too slow. They do the same job, and today the complementary actions that Radoni brought to the game with Hogg did the dirty work. Radoni picked it up, turned out, found those passes. It was beautiful to watch at points today. What I love about this, right? Look, Carlos was effective and won us games, but you know what? Schofield is obviously a lot more direct. There was a lot of points today where, rather than maybe passing it around a bit at the back, we just went straight forward, playing it down the flanks to Sorba and the new lad, and even to Ward up top now and again. I just think if it can click, maybe I'm hoping it wasn't like Stoke were just a bit rubbish today, but if it isn't, then I think we could be seeing some exciting football this year.
No, absolutely. And we talked about Danny Schofield actually mentioned it in the press conference. He was talking about a moment to go your way, and I think, to be honest, it was that penalty for Stoke, the save from Nichols. James, what was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, from where I sit in the ground, Not really easy to see whether it was a penalty or not. But obviously great save from Nichols, and I think just something like that can be a turning point. The crowd fully got behind them after that, and it just felt like it gave us a bit of a lift, something to get angry about, and something to really, make some noise about. So I think something like that can make a big difference in a game. And then I think, just coming on from what Tom said, I think Jonathan Hogg had an absolute sterling performance. We were, I was cackling at some of the passes he was putting in. I think he even did a little flick round the back. All these little flicks he was doing at times, just absolutely rolling back the ears. And it was just a joy to see, and it just felt like more of what we can expect from Danny Schofield as a manager, and just a bit more of what we saw as a player. He was a direct player. He had a direct style, and he got stuck in, and that's just what we did today. So, absolutely, great result, and Danny Schofield's Barmy Army. Now we're singing it. So can only lead to good things from here, I think.
I love it. A bit of positivity. And Joe, I think the thing for me with this game was we've seen how good we've been in the second half of the games and first half we've gone, but I think one of the main differences for me was we started well today. That was a big talking point, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think it was the way we set up. We just had a bit more cover defensively, which was obviously a weakness in the last few games. So that set us on the right foot, I think. We had a good defensive base, and then we built from that. We got chances and we got more confident, and then the penalty situation that James referred to just really galvanised us, I think, and pushed on from there.
Yeah, well, we've talked a lot about the Stoke game, obviously, because we've literally walked up and I'm a bit out of breath, as you can probably tell. But attention turns ahead to another game, Tuesday night, Norwich. They've lost today, 2-1 to Hull. Hull, there we go, full time. What a difference a win makes, lads. I feel like, we lost 7-0 there last time. I know before this game we weren't expecting much. James, how do you feel about it now? Do you feel we could maybe get something from this?
Yeah, positive. I think we always have to be targeting the 3 points in every game that we play, and I think that's the way Schofield will try and play as well. But I think I think that we've got the style of play now, 3-4-3. So I think that's the way that Carlos did it, and I think we'll be well placed. I think it's more suited to the squad. I think 4-4-2, you probably could have picked a worse formation to suit our squad. So I think 4-3-4. What am I on about? 3-4-3 rather, or even try 4-3-4. I don't know.
Just see how many players we can get
on the pitch. Yeah. I mean, before the game, I think we actually joked that we were playing, 5 defenders and 5 strikers. It didn't seem to fit. But there you go.
Took us about 30 minutes to figure out what the formation was.
I think on the right hand side, it was just. I don't think they knew what was coming with the new guy that came in, and I think. Obviously, Norwich might be a bit more wise to that, but when you've got like a new guy and then a guy, you got Turton as well, and he was just really lent itself to the overloads. And then Andrew could kind of tuck in and be like more of a striker at times. So I just think, really, really good position. I think hopefully we sort of continue in that vein and we don't go back to this 4-4-2, because I think with Russell, I think. Russell can go away, work on his defensive game, and he'll come back hopefully a better player. And that's where we've got to view it at the moment. But it's no reason why we can't go there and target the 3 points.
Well, absolutely. And as we talk about this, Norwich, after the results today, at the bottom of the league. So Joe, we all know about we all know about a relegation hangover from the Premier League, don't we, as town fans? I don't know. It's looking a bit more rosy, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we needed that win badly today, didn't we? If we hadn't have won, we'd have been in a very sorry state. But yeah, normally I'm terrified of playing Norwich when they inevitably get relegated and we're playing them again. But I think we can be positive going into this. They've looked pretty shaky. Did they draw to Wigan earlier on in the season, was it?
Yeah, I think so. They've only got 1
point, so they drew to Wigan at home. Yeah. They lost today, and then they lost their opening game to Watford?
To another team.
To another team, yeah. But they've lost 2, drawn 1.
This is the insight you want.
Yeah.
I think before they get their feet on the ground and start going, I think we're playing them at a perfect time. Yeah. We can get them for sure. Especially after that, the boys are going to be buzzing, aren't they? After that win today. Yeah.
Well, you could see it on the pitch. They're all hugging each other. I think you're right. In terms of relief, it was a big win today. So, Tom, final word before we play Norwich. What we're thinking.
Norwich, interesting. So it was Cardiff who they lost to.
Oh, okay, there we go.
They
That's
lost
the
1-0
insight.
to Cardiff.
You stick with us, we'll give you the insight.
I think it's going to be difficult because we were just going through that team then, Brady, weren't we? And we were a bit surprised seeing some of the names. I didn't even know Kieran Dowell was there this year,
there.
which is quite a...
Todd Cantwell's back.
Yeah, Cantwell back there, Dowell. Sinani not even getting on the pitch today, so will he come on against Town and inevitably score? Who
100%.
knows? Possibly. Pookie starting, but I don't think he scored yet. He's making a lot of subs in a game, so he's obviously he's getting a bit desperate potentially. Look, I think Joe's touched on it perfectly. Perfect time to play him. They've just come down. It's always difficult just coming down. What am I going to say? I think after this win, hopefully, this has just given the players a bit of confidence that they need. We've touched on it. Playing 5 at the back is obviously working a lot better.
Yeah.
Go with that again on Tuesday. I think similar team, definitely same formation. See how we get on. But I think Joe touched on it perfectly. Perfect time to play him.
Absolutely. And normally when we do the warm-up, obviously we talk about opposition players, blah, blah, blah. But do you know what? Like, we're doing a little bit on the fly. We're at Magic Rock. The sun's out. It's summer. Town have won. And what a better way to not end it there. Like, things are good. Things are looking up the town. Come on. We'll chat next time. See you later. Come on, lads. Up the town.
Let's go. I think the fans can probably see I was trying my best, working hard.
The amazing elbow.
As a centre forward, the last thing you want is a goal drought starting off in a club. Started on my own up front, and the really good centre forwards like Jordan were rested.
Okay, so you thought you were done, but justice, the quest for justice, it never stops because it's time for the amazing elbow. Okay, so Tom, you know the story with the amazing elbow. He was left in a precarious position last week. Do you want to talk the listeners through it?
He was. So far, the amazing elbow, he's gone to the ground. He's found some discarded chinos. Then, inside those chinos was a Greek ransom note. And inside that was something mysterious. That was wrong, but loads of euros and a Greek eye or something. Then he heard a noise down the tunnel, and the listeners, they voted for that noise to be Chicken and Hartrick having a scrap over XG. He breaks it up and he asks them if they know anything about this mysterious note he found. Hartrick turns to him and he says ... So
he says ... So we're going to have 4 options for you here, and you're going to vote for the best one on the old Twitter, and whichever one Tom will draw for the next one. So David Hartrick turns to the amazing elbow after they've been having a fight over XG, and he says ... Tom, do you want to go first?
He says, go to the Kits man's office and ask for the cabbage man.
Ooh, the cabbage man, eh? Mr. Whitaker, what does David Hartrick say to the amazing elbow?
He says, to be brutally honest, all it says on the note are Town are a bigger club than Brighton.
Okay. He definitely said that, Dave, if you're listening.
That's true.
So David Hartrick in this, real scenario, this definitely happened, by the way. He turns to the amazing elbow, and what does he say, Joe?
He says that it's actually a compensation offer from Pieper, all the way from Athens, apologising for his foul throw against Forest in the cup.
I am very sorry, guys.
Okay. I also had the, sorry Dave, we love you, but people have pointed out on Twitter, Dave would say, in my scenario, to be brutally honest with you, I didn't see anything, but then he looked to the director's box.
Ooh!
So we will see what happens. So the poll will come out, you will vote in it, and whatever happens, Tom will draw. We will make Tom draw. And
Draw it.
forward to draw it.
Draw it.
We'll look forward to the next one. This is half an hour and up the sound.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.